Welcome to the June edition of the GETS Education Program. We'd like to start with a review of last month. Last month we looked at end-user computing and service desk. Our objectives were to understand end-user computing and the service desk services, to understand GETS charges for end-user computing and the service desk, and to become familiar with the processes and tools to manage end-user computing. If you were in the meeting, you would have a copy of the evaluation summary and attendance report. I believe that can be made available through your CRM. We are tracking those responses. But before we move ahead, we want to look at clarification on the Campus EUC device. In the last session, we stated that the 350 plus units within a 15-mile radius were attributed to one agency, and we could have answered that better, and it's actually the fact that it's an enterprise measurement, so however many units over 350 for all agencies that are within a 15-mile radius is how we are defining Campus EUC device. So this is a reminder of our GETS education program. We have a couple more towers left for this year, and we'll be taking November and December off. So let's jump right into servers today. First, we want to review our objectives. We want you to be able to understand server services that are provided by GETS, to understand the way the charges are calculated for server services, and to become familiar with the processes and tools to manage your server tower resource units. And if you're reviewing this with your CRM after this session, you'll be asked to fill out your feedback form to make sure that we gather that you've understood the material. We will review your feedback, even to the point that we have designated a special session according to the feedback we received on the disputes process, and more agencies want to know more about that. And we are committed to your success. So let's look at the agenda for today. We've got looking to get a better understanding of your GETS server services, to understand the resource units in the server tower, and how to better leverage processes and tools for this tower. So let's move right ahead. So we'd like to start off with reminding that the GETS model is a paradigm shift. The new model, in it, we pay for IT services, not hardware. This is a paradigm and culture shift for the state of Georgia. The consumption-based model is becoming a best practice in the private industry. Agencies pay a monthly service fee for hardware support, security, and disaster recovery. Agencies are not leasing the server hardware, but you're paying for a service. When you no longer need that server, you can turn it back in through the decommission process that started with an RFS. Even though an RFS for a new server environment cost is quoted from a 5-year view, if you've ever looked at an RFS, it doesn't mean that an agency is obligated to keep that server in operation for those 5 years. And at the end of the day, the agency owns consumption management. GTA provides transparency into the actual cost of services, and also provides the training and tools that empower the agency to manage its consumption. The agency avoids costly investments in equipment that quickly become obsolete, and the ongoing cost of IT staff needed to maintain that equipment. So let's look at some terms we'll need for this presentation. So GETS-HE stands for the Georgia Enterprise Technology Services Hosting Environment. We've talked about resource unit in the past presentations. It's a unit of measure for IT services provided by GETS. An incident is an unplanned interruption to an IT service or a reduction in the quality of an IT service. When we talk about the legacy environment, that's referring to the location of non-transformed servers in GETS. A physical server is the actual computer hardware used to provide processing or resources. A server technology platform is like an AIX server, Exchange server for email, Linux, Novell, Unix, and Wintel. And then finally, a virtual server is a software layer on top of a physical server that executes programs like a physical server would. Continued with the glossary, we have application server types. You have Wintel servers or Unix servers that host end-user or business-related functions for the agencies. You have utility servers, which are servers that are used for email, file and print, enterprise gateways, and presentation and terminal services. You have infrastructure servers, that are servers used for domain services, enterprise security, enterprise backup, enterprise monitoring, enterprise scheduling, and software distribution. And finally, we have instance complexity, which is the classification of support for a server operating system based on agency-defined need for system availability, system use, problem resolution time, etc. Now, that is a lot of information, but we're going to touch on that through the rest of the presentation, so hopefully we made more clear. So the server tower. The server tower recovers charges for application, utility, and infrastructure servers in the GETS environment. The services provided by IBM in this tower are listed on this slide. Asset management, change management, configuration management, disaster recovery, monitoring, patching, maintenance, and malware, recovery management, security, server refresh, server consolidation, transformation, and then file and print transformation. And because of our audience, we realize some people may not even know what a server looks like. And these are just two examples of hardware that are servers that are currently in use at the NADC. You've got the IBM server there and then an Oracle server next. They're generally put in a rack, and they can put a lot of them in a rack in the NADC. So let's talk about the server tower before and after GETS. So before GETS, agency performed all their server maintenance, and then through GETS, all the hardware and operating system care and patching is provided by IBM. The agencies still own the application and database space in the server tower. Before GETS, there was no enterprise-wide disaster recovery program, and now we do have an enterprise disaster recovery program through GETS, and there are actually 9 agencies that are participating in that. Before GETS, you had inconsistent monitoring or capacity reporting, and through GETS we have centralized change management, monitoring, and alert notification. We have the server refresh that was limited to capital expenditures when available. I know that Dean in the initial presentation mentioned when he was at DHR, the only time they could really get hardware is if there would happen to be extra money at the end of a fiscal year and they could make that capital investment. But as it is with GETS, servers are refreshed every 5 years. And before GETS, there was not really any consolidation in the enterprise. But today, through the Server Consolidation Transformation Project, we're driving efficiencies in application environments, and that is, bringing the state into the 21st century as far as the server tower is concerned. So let's look at the server types and how they're related to the server resource unit. So if you've ever looked at a GETS bill, there's server complexity instances that are listed on there. There's application server hardware charges, application server software charges. All of these pertain to application servers. And then you have, under the server tower, you also have email accounts, LAN attached devices, and like I mentioned before, server instances. And it's in those resource units that the cost for utility servers are recovered, like email, file and print, presentation terminal servers, which is something like Citrix. And then finally, you won't see a resource unit for infrastructure servers because their cost is indirect and spread out through the other resource units. Organized another way for your benefit, so you have application servers, and they have a hardware service charge for each physical server, and then server instance RU based on type and complexity. We're going to talk more about that going forward. You have utility servers. It's important to note that there's no hardware service charge for utility servers, and the resource unit depends on the function we've talked about, email servers and file and print, enterprise gateway, and how those align to different RUs. And then, as we said previously, infrastructure servers don't have a hardware service charge or a resource unit charge. The cost of the vendor is recovered through the other RUs indirectly. So with all this talk of server instance, it might be helpful to really get into what one of those are. So that's what we're going to do. So our working definition for today, server instance is one operating system running on a server to operate one or more applications. Now, track with me here because it can get a little strange. So you can have one or more applications running on one instance. That's like you having your, if we relate it to the EUC world, you have Office running on your laptop, and you have email running on your laptop, two different applications on the same operating system. But also one or more instances can run on one server. Now, we don't really do this today, but that's like having Windows 7 and let's say Apple Mac operating system running on the same piece of hardware. Some people do boot anyway. And then you have the server cluster, which is where the environment gets complex, where you have multiple instances running on multiple physical servers. And as far as the resource rates for server instances, they're determined by the complexity level. You have high, medium, and low complexity. And we have a matrix that explains all this in the addendum to the presentation. But it's important to note that the agency determines the complexity based on their application business value. So, and those things that go into that decision making are operational support hours, availability, resolution time, use, storage management, disaster recovery planning. And as far as the rates are concerned between high, medium, and low, high complexity servers, server instances cost more than medium, and medium costs more than low. At least that's what it's priced through the contract. And the question you're maybe asking yourself is, can I save money by changing the complexity level of my server instances? And well, the answer is it depends. Because in order to change the complexity of an instance, the server environment will actually have to be changed. And there's a cost to that with an RFS and the effort to do it. And it just might outweigh the monthly reduction in cost that you would realize through changing that server instance level. At the end of the day, your support needs for your server instances should determine your complexity level. And the best practice is to get the server environment complexity level set right when it's initially built. Now, we thought it would be helpful to put this instance example into a picture to better explain it. So, when you look at this picture, at the very bottom you have the hardware. There's an HSC charge that comes along with that hardware on the invoice, and that's the physical server. Then you have software that allows you to run multiple operating systems on one piece of hardware. And you can see above that layer that you have here, an example, 4 different Windows Server operating systems installed on this piece of hardware. And then, because it's an Intel box or Intel server, you can see that you could have an Intel low server, complexity high, medium, all those instances, depending on the business justification, can be defined in that way. And those are where you'll see the RU charges for those server instances, which is just simply an operating system running on a server. And then, as the example shows, that you can have one application running on a server instance, or you could have multiple applications running on a server instance. By doing this, by putting multiple instances on one server, it's more efficient. You can save money this way. In this example, if this example was real world and was billed through your invoice, you would see 1 hardware service charge and 4 server instances charges. Now, you might still be asking, okay, so some of these are high, some of these are low instances. How exactly is that defined? Well, on this next slide, we have the server complexity matrix. And this table shows the means to defining server instances in the IBM GTA contract. A full version of this matrix is in the addendum to this presentation. You'll notice that under high, medium, and low that you have various levels of service and system use available. How an agency chose these support needs for their server instances at commencement and when adding new application server environments or through server consolidation determines that instance complexity level, and this is the matrix to get there. Now let's take a slight turn here, and we always like to review the rate history because it's important to note that you can budget for your services from GET, and this slide shows that historically the rates are stable. You can see that at the turn of the fiscal year, rates went down, and that's because in the contract year for FY13, the overall rates for server are down in the contract. Now you'll see some bumps in the rate in December and February, and those were due to prior period adjustments where certain agencies decreased their volume, and because the volume went down, the price goes up. But you'll notice it's only really 1 month at a time, and we talked about the past presentations, the invoice review, that we have safeguards in place, thresholds of volume, that if it moves too high or too low, we can renegotiate with IBM. Part of that agreement is that those drastic changes would happen for greater than 3 months in a row for us to look at it. So these are all within a normal behavior, I would say, for the pricing. Now, if you look close, you'll see that the Unix medium, high, and low rate and the the Unix medium and high rate and the Intel high and medium rate are juxtaposed. You would expect the highs to be more expensive, and what's happened is there's been a lot of growth in the server tower, but there's been more growth on the high complexity service level instances, and because of that, it's driven that price down. We're currently working with IBM in a negotiation to try to fix those inverted rates, so that'll make more sense going forward. So, as we recap this server tower resource units, only application servers generate both hardware service charges and support resource units for the server instances for the agency. Utility servers incur resource unit charges depending on the function, but no hardware service charges. And infrastructure servers are paid by indirect costs, no HSC or direct support resource unit. The management of the server tower is directly related to the number of email accounts, number of EUC devices, number of physical servers, and number of high, medium, and low complexity server instances. This next slide shows you what these resource units look like on your invoice. And here you can see the juxtaposition of the rates for the high and medium server instances. So the main point of this slide is that this is your invoice, and it's key for you to reconcile your bill. Reconciliation is a key role for the agency to control the charges that come out of the server tower. In addition to reconciliation, the agency should be realistic about the server type and the complexity when requesting new servers and upgrading, and don't ask for more than you need. EUC management also plays a role in managing server costs. The LAN attached resource unit that is based on the number of active or connected EUC devices pays for some of the utility servers. Reduction in EUC devices equals a reduction in the LAN attached resource unit. Email account resource unit also pays for some utility servers, so reducing the number of email accounts and keeping those clean will help reduce your costs there as well. And we always like to review how to address discrepancies in your invoice. So once you've completed the reconciliation of your invoice and you may have found some discrepancies in the detail, as far as servers go, you might find a cost center that's incorrect or the image category is incorrect, but none of these are real billing triggers, so this would be something that you would fix through order now and the change in attribute to an existing asset by your asset manager. But if you found something where there's a server host name that is not yours and you've been billed for that, that is something that you would want to file a dispute for. You would do that through chargebackadmin@gta.ga.gov, and you would want to include the rationale for filing the dispute, the resource units that you're disputing, the server host names for those servers, cost center, the date range or the invoice month that you're dealing with, and then if you have any change requests like an RFS number, an order now number, you'd want to include those as well, and of course your contact information. Finally, we want to reiterate GTA's role in server management. We have the governance of the service tower. We have process improvement, verification, reporting, the SLA, validation and management, and providing transparency and cost, and negotiating competitive rates. As far as dispute resolution, you have a CRM who can help you with your issues, and also, of course, there's the dispute process, which includes chargeback admin. And then we are empowering agencies with knowledge and tools. We have this ongoing education that we're doing here, but we also have education for agency management leads and coordinators that is happening, I believe, quarterly. There's the Asset Management Handbook that has come out recently. We provided a DVD in the May 2013 session. And there's an asset management toolkit that's being developed that will come out in late 2013 that will help bridge asset management data across Maximo scan tools, agency databases, and the invoice. A small portion of your charges help defray the cost of the variety of services that GTA provides on your behalf, and that's what we just listed here. So finally, here's our summary. The agency is enabled and empowered to perform consumption management for servers. Application server use is driven by the number of physical servers and type of complexity. Server instance, you have best practices in EUC consumption management that also lower your utility server costs. And we recommend that you manage those email accounts to keep that cost down as well. So, preview of what's ahead next month. We're looking at storage on July 25th, and we will be going through our same learning objectives that you better understand your services, you know what you're being charged for, and you know what tools you have to manage that service. If you're going over this with your CRM, right now we'd ask that you complete that learning objectives evaluation, and we hope to see you live next time. Thank you.